Okay,
Okay.
we're going. You ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Let's start. Good morning, good evening. Wherever you are in the world is Grant Cameron, and I am honored to do this presentation tonight. I have only one word. If you don't watch this, you're going to miss something, because it's about time someone did this documentary. It is the best documentary maybe I've seen on a lot of subjects, and it's on a very important subject, which has a lot of stories about it and a lot of myth about it, and that's the alien abduction phenomenon. I'm joined by Deb. Oh my
You
goodness.
can just say Deb Shakti.
Yeah, Deb Shakti.
Yeah.
And John Yost, the producer, and they have gone together with Whitley Strieber. We'll talk about it. Whitley Strieber was a big part in it, and they did a documentary that is airing on May the 3rd. We're doing this promo here tonight for all my people, and I'm saying anybody that watches me, this is an extremely important show. You need to watch this documentary and the interview we're going to do tonight, because this documentary gets it exactly right. It talks about what really may be going on. I've always complained that people are busy counting, matchbook covers or stamps or stuff, how many UFO sightings are there and what color they are, and what color aliens there are and stuff like that. And nobody ever gets past and deals with the experiencers. It's anecdotal. We don't need to listen to this. And I have maintained forever that until you talk to the people who are dealing with the intelligence, you are totally wasting your time. You cannot learn anything from lights in the sky except the fact that something's going on that probably isn't us. So Deb and John, welcome. And let's kick it off. Have we got any trailers? Have you got a trailer you can show? Or
Oh, I had sent you in that email. I thought maybe perhaps you'd share your screen. I am Zoom.
Okay, well, I'll work on it.
Yeah.
while we're talking. I will
Thank you.
look
Thank you
at
very
it.
much. Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay. And I'll line it up and see if I can share screen. I'll need permission to share screen, but somebody started off in terms of what this is about, how the project got going, and what was the idea of the project, and we'll go from there. And I'll look for the trailer for this
Certainly.
fantastic documentary.
Debs, do you want to start it off?
Well, I am trying to give him permission to share
All right,
screen right
no
now.
problem.
So maybe you go right
I'll start
ahead.
it off. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right. When I was 7 years old, I had an experience which, frankly, scared the hell out of me, and I didn't really understand it. And it was very, very dramatic. And there were physical traces and marks on my body. And as a little boy, I didn't really know how to even approach it. And of course, this is in the 60s. And so you didn't really talk about that sort of thing. And but it was concerning enough that my parents took me to the doctor to have an examination. And when it came to the mark that had happened that evening, it was unexplainable.
And you still have the mark, correct? You still have the mark on your body. You show it in the document.
Sir. Yes, sir, I do. I do to this day.
Yeah.
And throughout my life, I had lied about it because I was told to. And it just became like putting on a watch. I tried to ignore it.
Yeah.
You don't even think about putting on a watch. You just put your watch on. And but it was a completely I was completely awake. I had got up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom. And when I was coming out of the restroom, I was confronted by an entity. And then there was some sort of interaction at that time, and bright flashing lights and kaleidoscope. And I felt like I was traveling, but I didn't know really where I was going. And when I came back, or when I became conscious of where I was again, I was still outside that bathroom door, but my body had been juxtaposed with this entity. And my back was facing these hardwood stairs, and what had happened was that this entity reached out for me with its right hand and touched my left shoulder. There was a tremendous amount of energy I felt, and I fell back and fell to the bottom of these stairs. Well, I was a 7-year-old boy. I was shouting, screaming. It was petrifying to me, and so that's what began this odyssey. Then I kept it deep inside for over 40 years, 45 years. And I became a man and, married and children, living a life and having a normal job. And I was involved in film and television producing. And I was doing a project, and we were in the middle of the desert, and something happened late at night. After we had been finished with our work, we were sitting around and just relaxing. And there was a toast. We all raised our glass. And I noticed a glint in that glass. And I thought to myself, that's awfully strange. We were outside. I said, that's very strange. What's that about? And as I pulled down my glass, my mind had said that was the moon, but it was a new moon. There was no moon. And as I pulled down my glass, I saw this thing, this oblong thing in the sky about 30 feet away from us. And I almost lost my mind. I couldn't believe it. And my mind is trying to categorize whatever I'm seeing here. I'm trying to figure out what it is. It was luminous. It had its own luminosity. It was green, blue. And my mind said, this has got to be a Mylar balloon.
Yeah.
It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I grabbed one of my cameramen. I turned him to look at this thing. Well, he about dropped his glass. He didn't understand what the hell he was looking at. And we were with about 15 people. And I was completely shocked. This was about as big as a Volkswagen. And I could, Grant, I tell you something, I could have hit it with a baseball. That's how close it was.
Wow.
And I didn't know what to say. I kind of gagging on my words, trying to tell these people. But just then, these people all saw it. And some individuals said, "Oh my God, and look at this, and thank you." And what this thing zipped very, very quickly in a zigzag formation, and then right above my head stopped. And it stopped for just an instant, and then it moved over, stopped, and then it just floated out into the desert with this group of people, gobsmacked and not really knowing what had happened. But at that point, something kind of unlocked in me. And all of those lies that I had told, I mean, I had told them forever, right? But somebody asked me what happened. Oh, I got shot. Oh, I got stabbed. I fell off a mountain, whatever. It just, anything was better than saying, oh, by the way, I was abducted by aliens and they marked me. I like to say often that that's not really a resume builder. So I didn't say that a lot. I said nothing, or I just ignored it. But something happened in that desert, and it started to affect me.
Which leads to the question I want to ask you, just jump in here. I always ask people, like people get so excited about UFO sightings, and I always ask them, so what did it do? What was it doing? And they go, it wasn't doing anything. It was just sitting there. And you think it wanted you to see it? And same with the mark, because you'll get a lot of people say, oh, this violates our sovereignty and they don't have the right. And why would they mark us? And I've got a mark on my body. And so how do you handle that kind of stuff? What's this all about?
Sure. Well, maybe I can explain it this way. So what happened was all of these feelings, just these questions that you just brought up, about sovereignty and myself, and now, I'm an adult and I'm reflecting on this, and I have a little bit of anger and a whole lot of paralyzing fear.
Yeah.
And so I I started to do a lot of research and bumped into a lot of people, very serious people like yourself and like Debs. And I had an opportunity to meet with Debs, and she and I had discussed this, and because she had a background in this, she understood what I was looking for. And I was amazed to find out that there were so many people in the world who had had like experiences, different but like. And so we began this journey, and Debs has really become, I mean, she's not only an associate producer, but I refer to her as my guardian angel, really, because she really helped me. And you've seen the film, and so you know how she helped me.
Yeah, because yours was kind of a, if you get down to it, when you go into the hypnosis, yours was kind of an ugly experience. When you come down to
Yes,
it,
sir.
it was not pretty.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was. And it was tragic because of, I mean, once again, I'm a 7-year-old boy, so I
Yeah.
see it through 7-year-old boy eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
So that thing in the sky, as I mentioned, it moved very, very quickly and zigzagged and then stopped right above my head and then moved very quickly away and stopped and then drifted off. And nobody had any idea, if it had been there longer or whatever. But that triggered me, and that's what began this path. And this movie actually it's a mistake for me. I shouldn't have been in the film. It shouldn't have been part of me. I was there to find out. It was going to be a catharsis, and it really became a very personal catharsis, with Deb's help.
I often ask people who do books, did they want you to do this? And they'll say, absolutely. And in fact, the one woman, her kids took a court injunction to stop her from publishing the book, and she went ahead with it. And so it's this idea that, do you believe in this idea that we are called, that this is part of your mission, and therefore all this stuff all fits together? There's nothing random going on here. It's over your head, and it's saying, okay, John, it's time to go. Let's get her going here.
Sure. I've talked to a lot of people, and they say the same thing that you said,
Yeah.
Grant, about having a mission. I don't know that I have a specific laid out mission. What I can tell you is that I have an overpowering urge to, number one, help people who have had experiences that have troubled them.
Mhm.
And with this film, I wanted them to see this through my eyes, not in a third person sort of way. You see a lot of these documentaries and they state, statistics and this sort of thing. It's kind of sterile in a way.
Yeah.
I wanted them to understand that and it's not people with tinfoil hats. It's your lawyer. It's the guy who's taking out the garbage on the end of the street. It's your nurse. It's your friend. It's your sister. It's your brother. And I wanted them to see this and understand that, number one, it was all right to talk about. And number two, it was all right to find out about. And then number three, I wanted to take them from that position of fear and ignorance, which is where really almost everybody, except for people in this community, really live. They live in that world of fear and ignorance. And I wanted to take them from there to understanding.
Yeah.
And in the second film, I hope to take them from understanding to application.
Wow.
And the next one, I want to take them from application to true, may I steal a word from Whitley, communion.
Yep.
Yeah. It was just fascinating to see, sort of like, it was these people, and then me too. And you're sitting there in the middle of the stage, and it's sort of like, I just found it so riveting, was just the idea. And the thing that you mentioned statistics, that a lot of times I'll use statistics because a lot of people are into the fear thing. They're into the national insecurity thing. They may be a threat, all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times I'll use the free stats, and people don't use them anymore. They don't. And you used the one about I think it was 84% of the people. If you had a chance to stop this, would you? No. And
No.
that is one of the most powerful statistics that there is. I mean, if this is what people are preaching all the time, and people do preach it, that's what they're doing in front of Congress.
Sure.
This could be a threat. It's this, it's that.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to point out to people is you see it from a totally different angle. It starts that way. It looks like that's where it's going. and then especially the message. Let me ask Debs, what do you think about the mission thing in terms of, is this sort of planned? It's because you see the thing with different experiencers, and Chris talks about this, that they want him the message when he didn't talk for 5 years, and then the shining lady calls him and says, Chris, you have a burden and it is yours to carry. And then he was in outer space a second
Yes.
time in 2012 because he stopped talking. They said, you have a burden and it's yours to carry. And I said, what is the burden, Chris? He said, it's the message. So he said, this
It absolutely
absolutely,
is.
that is what this is about. I'm to deliver a message. Do you think you and John are delivering a message that they want out?
Yeah, there's no question. And I'll tell you, from the minute I met John, I knew that he had a mission, and I'm pretty sure he knew he had a mission too, but he was kind of doing it, clawing at the carpet. I think they just pulled him along until and gave him many opportunities to see how much he needed to trust that it was going to happen. I mean, he did mention it came up against some pretty strong obstacles here and there before before it was completed, and there's just no question in my mind that he was given a directive. But and I want to go back there. Given a directive, but agreed collectively with the directive or the idea of the directive. I mean, this is not a somebody is controlling humans to make them do things kind of thing. We volunteered to do this on some level, right? So, but I have no question that he's on a mission. I have no question that I'm on a mission. And I will be the first to say, there are other things I'd rather be doing some days. And yet I always get pulled back into it. Even if I'm trying to do something else, it turns into something that is correlated. So there is kind of I believe, a jigsaw puzzle
Yeah, I think,
type of thing with this.
yeah, I think that's important to point out, is that the way we do it is, as I always point at this joke, the way we do it to put out a message is we invade a country and we say, we're here to bring in freedom, democracy, Jesus, and McDonald's. And the way they do it is they give John this thing in his head that just drives him crazy, and he spends his whole life trying to figure it out. And then when he figures it out, it's sort of like the aha moment, and it gets delivered. But they make us go through the process. This is not something where it's a given, where people are, and you see that with experiencers. You'll see the same with near-death experiencers, where you have like 75 to 80% get divorced. I mean, they're just not the same people after they have a near-death experience, and everything flips. And that's what you see here, is this story of a true message that comes out, but it sort of goes through a lot of the people. And I was very impressed in the documentary. I knew most of the people in the documentary. I was like, oh, I know that person too. And I know that. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I often tell people John is the character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, who Richard Dreyfuss played. You look how compelled that person was in that story, and he didn't even know what it was he was being compelled to do or feeling. But they bring you along slowly, or shall I say, we bring ourselves along slowly, in the right way, because I truly believe they are us on different frequencies. We're just helping ourselves wake up, in that way. So,
yeah.
I think I was able to pull this up from my end if you want to see
Okay.
it.
Okay. Yeah.
Grant.
Please. Yeah, the trailer. So we're going to see
I'm
the
not good. Yeah.
trailer, which is, so just go to share screen and make sure you click on the bottom with the sound and stuff. There's little boxes on the sound. You got to click on to share sound and stuff, so you have sound with it.
Let's see. We've got microphone on. I'm not good at this. I apologize, but we'll see. And
You were good in the movie. That's all. In the documentary. That's all you have to worry about.
yeah,
Very
thank you.
professional.
Let's see. So
You just go share screen, and then on the bottom of it'll go to a new screen, and on the bottom, click the share sound, and then just share.
Yeah, I'm doing it from an iPad, so there's some kind of difference here. I don't know. I may not be able to do this. This is weird.
Okay, well, you play with it there, and when you got it come out, I want to ask Whitley about the role of Whitley Strieber, who is a came to the idea of communion, and I always tell people the story about, you mentioned the importance of the word communion, and you probably know the story that Whitley was going to call it body pain, and that
Yes.
his wife started
Yeah.
to channel in this weird language in the middle of the night and said, no, we will not call it body pain. We will call it communion because that's what it is. So talk a little bit about, oh, here's the share screen. Okay, here we go.
Oh, great.
I'm not sure if it's doing. Huh.
It's
What's it
you're sharing
showing?
screens. Okay, so now you're on your screen. Now you just gotta find it where it is in the email. Open. Okay, there you go. Oh, you got a Mac. That's the problem.
Okay.
You people with your Macs.
There we go. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, let's
Okay,
try
you just gotta
this.
enlarge it.
I'm gonna try to enlarge it here. Can you see that?
Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. That will change you. It changed me.
Lost in between.
Is that advertising bar there? You can take that advertising bar to the
There's a
middle.
little X on the far left.
Left corner of that advertising bar in the middle. Huh? Is Deb still here?
I don't know, sir.
She's still here. Share screen. I don't know why it stopped. Maybe she hasn't got enough to run it.
Maybe.
Well, let's while she's working on this, it'll come
Yes,
back up.
sir.
We'll stop talking, but let's go through Whitley Strieber's
Sure.
participation in this, because he plays a major
Yeah.
role in this documentary.
Yeah. I don't know if she's still recording since she's gone now. See what I'm
I
saying?
think I'm recording, so yeah. So
Oh,
we're okay.
wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Grant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So Whitley Strieber, what had happened was, when I decided that I wanted to find out this subject, and I started to talk to people and started to do interviews as background, Whitley's name came up over and over again.
Yeah.
And I of course did not know Mr. Strieber at all.
Yeah.
And when I work with, I asked her, I said, do you know anybody who knows Mr. Strieber? And she said that she did, and probably somebody you know very well, Mr. Mark Sims.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she was able to connect me with this Mr. Mark Sims, and he and I got along very, very well. And then he kind of vetted me, wanted to make sure that I wasn't, I'm sure, well, I'm finding out there's a lot of chicanery out there, people who are doing wrong things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Anyways, but he checked me out, and then of course he introduced me to Mr. Strieber, who again is very careful man. He's a very careful man, and he should be. And so he and I spoke several times, and but this was all through Debs. I owe it all to her, because I would have never met him. And so what I did was, we were going to interview him, and so I literally read every single book that he has written on this subject. And I came so prepared. I had just given him, I want to say 16 pages of notes. And when I finally met him, he looked at me kind of quizzically, like, I don't know anybody like you, John. And I just said, well, I so desperately want to know. I so desperately want to know. And so we went into the interview, and there's a lot of stuff in the film that came from the interview. And I mean the structured interview, but then there were so many sidebars that he would, color that answer, really give me an insight that maybe, because I didn't know the questions to ask. Do you know what I mean? Because of my lack of experience and lack of knowledge, he was able to give me a color, and a lot of that came out in the film. I know that you saw that.
Yeah.
And he was able to, not only was he able to answer my questions, he was also he helped me reframe my approach. He helped me understand that fear, and that it was okay. And he helped me understand that I was in control of that fear,
Mhm.
and that I could use that fear and mature through that because of those ontological changes and differences in me and what had happened. And then I didn't have to be afraid, that I could end up becoming a participant, as he notoriously has been famous, more famously, sorry, famously has been for all these years. And so I have to tell you, I am absolutely in love with that man. And he was a true gentleman and a true scholar and a true thoughtful, very, very personable man. And I really owe a tremendous debt to him. I tell him all the time, I call him Mr. Strieber. And he kind of laughs at me. He says, John, we know each other pretty well. Mr. Strieber, I just don't know the words to thank you. Yeah. So that's how I met Mr. Strieber and how that all happened.
Wow.
And yeah, and he continues to this day to speak to me and write to me often. We about the film and what was going on. In fact, I have to tell you this, and this is very important, Grant. Um, I made sure that every one of his clips went through him. We would cut it. I would do my very utmost to make sure that we did a good service and took the exact information that he wanted, because I didn't want to mislead anybody, and I also did not want to misrepresent him. And so he reviewed every single one of them, and then he put his stamp of approval on it. And I have to say, he didn't change anything. And then at the end of the film, he had to put his imprimatur on it. So I say very confidently, he supports the film and has been very supportive of all of our efforts to let people know about it.
Is he in part two? And what's part two? You describe a little bit more about what part two is going to be about. Is he in part two?
Well, yeah, what's happening is, just as a background, is this film comes out May 3rd.
Yeah.
And so what I'm doing, I'm not really happy about this, but this work is expensive. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to find funds to do the second film.
Okay.
The second film will be about, I'm sorry, my phone is, Debs is trying to get in touch with us, I think. The second film is about me again. Now I found out this information, and what I'm understanding at this point, and this is probably something close to your heart, sir,
Yeah.
is that this is more than shiny lights in the sky. This is about consciousness, about the soul,
Yeah.
about our maturation as beings itself. And it is more than an quote unquote ET situation.
Yeah.
This has to do with consciousness. And then I've discovered this entire group of information about the different modalities. And that's why I mean, it'll touch you close to your heart.
Yeah.
Different modalities, that the consciousness is primary, that these are all close encounters of that quote unquote other, that there are places on the planet where the world's walls are a little thinner. There are ways to adapt the way we see things and examine ourselves and calm ourselves to allow us to contact that other. And that all of this is so important for our evolution as people. And I have to tell you, Mr. Cameron, I am speaking to you complete gibberish to a man 2 years ago who started this. I would have never in my life thought I would say anything like that. I had no idea. But I am so convinced now,
Yeah.
through the relationships and through the people that I have met, that what this is truly a tip of the iceberg. It is merely the thing that shiny light in the sky is a signal to us that there is other. And it's more than that, it's an invitation. And,
Okay, I'm going to let Debs back in here. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's the important part. And you've come a long way, and so have I. I mean, as I told the story in 2012, when Chris had his experience with the lady in light, almost the same day or within a couple of weeks, I had my experience, and Ray Hernandez had his experience with the dog, where the dog gets healed. They all happened at the same time. And I always make the joke that in 2012, I could not have spelled consciousness and I couldn't have cared less. And so I've come the same way as you, where you start and you go down one road and you think that's where it's going. And then it's like they just flip it. And suddenly you realize another aha moment and you go, oh, I see what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It was a complete surprise to me. I had no idea about the. Yeah, I might have had an inkling that in fact these beings, these entities, could communicate to us mentally, but I thought that was just an artifact of that interaction. I never understood that it was so much more. And as I said to you, it's not a signal. It's more of an invitation to participate.
Yeah.
And as Whitley says, are you going to ask the next question? So many people, you probably experience this often, sir, is that, people are satisfied with, doubting, well, there's nothing out there. Then all of a sudden the Navy reports, oh, well, of course there is something out there, and might be ours, might be somebody else. That's fine. Well, hello, there's another question. Who's flying it? Why are they here? What do they want?
Yeah.
How should we react? How do we interact with them?
Yeah.
And
And that's where
so
the documentary goes. I mean, and I guess we'll sort of withhold the Debs, you're having sound problems. They're trying to. Some message on his face. But log back in again. I wanted to ask her question about the regression, because that's the most riveting part, and I don't think we should give away what happens, but
No.
that is absolutely riveting. The regression session, it's just like it'll take people's breath away. I mean, I was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
I saw it.
I was a doubting Thomas. I was a doubting Thomas. And it's so funny because this entire experience, this entire catharsis, this film, it continuously breaks down these barriers. The fear that we have is being out of control. We have this idea that we are in total control of our atmosphere, our lives, and there is just so much around us that can affect us, and we refuse to recognize it. And part of that was when Deb said, listen, well, part of my search was what had happened on the top of those stairs. I could remember it clearly as day because I had experienced it completely awake.
Yeah.
So I knew what had happened. It wasn't a dream state or whatever. I was completely awake. I was walking around. But when I switched places, that moment, I didn't understand what had happened. And so Debs offered me an opportunity to explore that. And because she is a quantum hypnotherapist, she said, listen, I can take you into that world and you can see it from all these different angles. And I have to tell you, I mean, I wanted to, and I was frankly very afraid,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to know. My need to know was greater than my fear.
Yeah.
And I went into it fearful, but saying to myself, I am going to force myself to experience this. But I never thought that I would
That would
go
happen.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something, Grant. It felt like, honestly, it felt like the floor dropped out from underneath me and I was floating. And it was the most eerie, incredible, and freeing feeling of my life. And then when I was able to go back to that moment and literally see it and relive it, and as you saw, it got very emotional sometimes because
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I was living it again as a 7-year-old boy. It wasn't a man of 55 years. I was a boy again. And she had to constantly remind me and pull me back out because I was in that boy's head.
Yeah.
I was experiencing those feelings and all of that visceral um, input as a child. And it was only after she was able to pull me out that I was able to report accurately, because the emotions were overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you had the part where you came back out, like you gave them sort of the message, and then you came back out, and it was like you had this instant knowing of how much of that did you put in the film? Because it's almost like you got this sort of download. This is what it's all about, and you started talking about this and this, and this is what it's about, and as if you knew exactly what they were saying, but you were then back into conscious life. How much of that material went into the film?
That's a fair question, and I thank you for it. I want to say to you very little, and it was by design, okay, on purpose, because when I was there and I had experienced everything that I had to, I got the kind of answers, the physical answers that I needed to understand what had happened to me. And Debs then pulled me back even further. And she refers to it as the oversoul or the higher consciousness. And she said, listen, I'm gonna ask you this opportunity, and you're gonna pull back and you'll be able to see this. And that was the most surreal experience ever. I'm gonna tell you something, Grant. If you've never had that happen to you, you might lose your freaking mind. I'm sorry. You might lose your mind. It felt like, I'm a big guy. I'm about,
Yeah.
6'3", 270 pounds. I'm a big guy. It felt like somebody about 12 feet tall was standing right behind me, pushing up against my shoulder right behind me. And my mouth opened. I did not know what the hell I was saying. It was, to me, I was like, ba, 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 ba. When I came out of that, and it happened suddenly, it was like the transmission was over.
Yeah.
Debs had done this miracle work with me, and I was, they had like put the medicine on that open wound that I had had for years,
Yeah.
and they had told me exactly what was going on. Remember, I told you I didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth. When I came out of it, it was all in my head. I've heard people say, oh, well, you get a immediate download, and I didn't understand that. I don't, that sounds like poppycock to me. I don't know what you guys are all crazy. It's never going to happen to me. I'm sure of it. It was like there was a block of information that just was sitting in my head, and so she said what, and then I just talked. So the question, Debs, I know you're away. The question was, how much of that information when I came out is in the movie? And I said to Grant, very little, very, very little. And the reason is this, from a filmmaker's point of view, okay? It is important not to overload our audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much, like I said, I found many times in this, I don't know which way to say, this quest, being overloaded, like not understanding, almost drowning in the information. So that's why I wanted to take people from fear and misunderstanding and ignorance to understanding. The second film, though, will have some of those elements and pull that information in. Because what's happened, and you both know this better than I do because I know nothing, when you realize that, when they have your attention, or when you turn your attention to them, you think it's over. It's just begun, because they now understand that you see them and they see you, and you understand. And I've had more experiences since the movie.
Wow. There you go.
Some pretty dramatic ones, some pretty damn dramatic ones that I've shared with Debs. And so that's the idea for the second film. Like, okay, well, listen, now that you know the truth, what do you know now? How do you deal with that? How do you live with the uncomfortable feeling that not that you're out of control, but that you're part of something so much bigger than yourself? How do you navigate that? How are you honest enough with yourself? And how does it change your life with other people? The third film will deal with people such as yourself, both of you, at that high level of understanding and contact. and what you're doing with your lives. That high level of understanding and contact and what you're doing with your lives. There are people around the world who are in incredible contact and manifesting incredible things, as you know better than I. And they're using that contact and that mastery. If I use the word mastery, nobody at that level would use the word mastery. But how do you use that to better the world? How do you help the entire civilization? We were talking about service to self, service to others.
Yeah.
You know, how do you actually use that? And I don't mean use it in a profiteering sort of way, but how do you actually participate in that and assist other people with it?
Yeah.
And I have to say, I am possessed by that idea.
Yeah. Like I
I know
wrote,
it
I wrote
sounds
the book.
hokey, but
Yeah, I wrote the book Contact Modalities, where I talk about this idea about you get into the field. Okay, even the free survey said 40% of all experiencers say at one point during their experience they knew the answer to everything in the universe. 31% of all near-death experiencers say 31 that they've had the answer to everything in the universe, but it all faded away. And so when I saw Debs do that, I've tried to be regressed before and it didn't work. So when Deb says, "Oh, anybody," and I'm going, so I contact her, said, "Really?" Because that to me is like the ultimate thing. If you can get and tap the field, why would you not want to know what John was told? Because it agrees with everything else, but it's so clear that you're getting this material that is not their left brain rational analytical guessing and evaluating. It's coming from a different place, and you go like, why are we looking at lights in the sky when you get this material that appears to be coming through very clearly
sure,
and telling us something that we need to know? And so
sure.
that just, I'd love to have Debs talk about that if she's going to. Oh, here she comes.
Oh, she has
Debs,
two
we just
screens.
had, I want you to comment, Debs, if you can, on the power of hypnosis. I was talking about the power of the ability to open this thing up the way you did in the documentary, and how this can open up the whole field instead of sort of looking at lights in the sky to getting the material that they're willing to give us. It's just a matter of accessing the field. It's not anybody can do it. It's just a matter of how do you access the field. Once you learn how to do it, why would you not go down that road? She's
Yeah, she's still
still
trapped.
tied up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
So
just say,
oh, here she is.
can you hear, Debs? No, not yet. The
No.
one thing I'll say to you, Grant, before that is once again, if I were to start the film at the end,
Yeah.
that probably would be great for people, say on your level or
Yeah.
Ray's
Yeah.
level, but for the majority of
Oh, yeah.
folks, that's why I need to take them from where they are, which is ignorance and fear. I agree with you. And by the way, I, you know, you probably understand this better than I do. But I was always amazed by when people, contactees, experiencers, would tell me that this consciousness that they interacted with had a sense of humor. And I thought that was the most bizarre damn thing. How could anything like this, so big, so important, have this? Why would there even be a place? And let me share this with you. I had in years past, I had taken a communication class in Belgium.
Okay.
And the thing that they had talked about was the onus of communication. Number one, if I want to communicate with you, the important thing is that I speak your language. I have to be able to tell you in images or words that you understand, because it's important to me to make sure that you know.
Yeah.
The second thing is this little saying they had. They said does not mean heard, and heard does not mean understood, and understood does not mean put into practice.
Right.
Well, I speak a few languages,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I know about people with mastery of language is this. Anybody can say, I'd like to know where the restroom is, or
Yeah.
I'd like another beer, or something like this. The true sense of mastery of a language is when you can tell a joke. Think about it. A joke is all about double entendre, about timing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's about nuance. That's the real mastery of it. And so when these things are manifest in our lives through humor or emotion, those are the things that you truly remember. And the important things come through that way. And that's why I feel that that's why there's humor in there,
Yeah.
because it's something that will help us understand, a hook to hang that memory on.
Yeah. You did a fantastic job in terms of leading the people through. It was, you could tell it was done like very professionally, like a storyteller, just bits and bits and bits. And it builds to this crescendo when you get to the end where the regression thing happens and
Yeah.
the message comes out. It was really, I think the average person will love it. And the people who are still into the fear state and putting this stuff out and are going to have something to answer for, because this is pretty well done. I mean, this is a good documentary in terms of
Thank you, Grant.
it's
Thank
well
you.
done. So Debs, I wanted to ask you about the hypnosis thing. I'd actually sort of
Go ahead.
written you a letter about that because this is always fascinating me. I was just floored by how well that hypnosis thing went and what came out. And I'm going like, wow, because I've tried to be hypnotized before and it didn't work. And I've always talked about contact modalities, that if you can get something where you can tap in, that's powerful information that you can access. And then we can start to figure out what's going on and what it's all about. And so talk a little bit about the hypnosis thing, because there's all these things about hypnosis in abduction stuff. I think people have a second thought when they see this
Yeah,
hypnosis that was done.
I think they will. I believe that anyone can go into that deep hypnotic state and access any bit of information in creation. Actually, we all have access to that, but you have to be personally motivated to do it.
Yeah.
And I believe what is key, what is so helpful in the really, really successful ones, like the one John was doing here on the film, is that you have to be able to allow yourself to have ego dissolvement a little bit. You have to let go. You have to trust. And I know that you've experienced that recently, and in a lot of your adventures that you've been taking, you lose the personal sense of I, and then you're able to, basically travel to any part of your existence, which is everything.
Yeah.
And so when you have to gain rapport with a person, that's key. But and I try very, very hard. I'm very, very pristine in the way that we conduct the whole session beforehand so that we don't front load anybody about the information that they're going to pick up.
Yeah.
And I think what's so flooring is the information that comes through often is stuff that they didn't have anything to do with, they don't have any interest in or any education in, myself included. I'm blown away when I do it. So but I think it's key because it is a contact modality. Contact essentially is us getting to know ourselves, the vastness of creation, of who we are, the unlimited possibility of who we are. And when we can allow ourselves to kind of let go of the ego's attachment to what it knows in this small little,
Yeah.
I call this the flash drive, and the big computer is life. When we can let go of that ego attachment and just trust that you're going to go, and that's part of the cueing, we say you're going to go to the most appropriate, scenario, the most appropriate life, the most appropriate moment in that most appropriate life to glean whatever it is you need. And it might seem very mundane at the moment when you're in it. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, why is this lady just weaving for hours and hours and hours? But there's always a key piece of information there. And then when we go to that higher level of self, it just ties it all together. And it is like John said, it's like this humongous being that is both within you and standing outside of you, speaking through you. And it's, I don't have words. It's an ineffable experience, actually. And done it almost all my life with people, and I can't explain how it works or why, but I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it was as I said, it was riveting. A question related to that, this may go into your second and third documentaries. The concept that's now being thrown around that I'm looking at is this idea that John Wheeler says there is no out there. This real not dimension thing, but this whole idea that there may not be anything, that it's all just awareness, and you're going within inside yourself. You're not going anywhere. They're not coming anywhere. As Greer used to say, the Sufi saying, you see yourself as a puny form when within you the universe is enfolded. And I used to think that was crazy. And now there's people who actually are saying this is how it works. And that's where we're so far away from the truth of what's going on when we get into evil aliens and all that kind of stuff,
Oh,
that this is where it's going. And John pointed that out. So I'm really looking forward to how you're going to handle part 2 and part 3, because that's sort of the higher level course, which really answers the questions. And maybe that would be the one objection where I would have in the film, where there was a statement made, well, nobody knows all the answers, or nobody, people saying, but I think the answers are there. You can access the answers, and you
yes.
guys did a wonderful job at doing it. So do you agree that there is this idea that there is only consciousness, and you're going, when you have an out-of-body experience, you're going within yourself, when you all this kind of stuff, that you are almost like one guy described it as, he was told to turn around and he saw this void behind him. This is a guy who worked at the Monroe Institute and had these visions, and he saw the void, and then he turned around and he saw that the reality that he was normally seeing had shifted 3 or 4 feet ahead of him, and he could see it was a screen. And he said, and they turned around and there was a void, and then he looked in, and he realized that we are like with our face against the screen, and we can't really see what's going on. We think we're in the screen, and it's a projection.
Yeah. When in fact we are the screen.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where it gets into, I think, what you guys start to point out in here, and maybe you can spell out what you think the main purpose of your abduction documentary is, because to me that's what it changes the most, is this idea that it is way more complex than what you think it is. And when you actually talk to the experiencers, you realize this could be the critical answer to the whole thing. You just got to start listening to these people and hear what they're saying, and you start to understand what's really going on with this whole UFO thing.
Yes. As I said to you, Grant, when I first, excuse me, when I first started on this path, before I even met Debs, you would have told me about how this intersects with spirituality and mind and consciousness, and I would have just scoffed. I would have said, come on now, these guys are obviously from Venus, and that's the way it is, right? Dummy. So so going into this, realizing that it's almost, I've used this analogy before, it's almost that story about, you send 3 brilliant scientists into this dark room and you say, what is it? And one says, oh, it's a spear, no, it's a whip, no, it's this huge rock, and you turn the light on and it's an elephant. And it's not that it's, and to your objection about nobody has really the answers, I think what it is it's just the answer is extremely simple and extremely complex at the same time. So to answer your question about the future of where this documentary is going, let me do this. Just like I had a hard time wrapping my arms around that idea, I couldn't start the story off there. And so I had to take the people with me. And so here I am now, understanding what you just said. And I would say also about the Sufi saying, I mean, with all of the religious faiths and all of the religious practices throughout the world, the same story it is. Christ says, the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Within you.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously there is a theme here. And what's a problem for us is that we know everything. And that was really me kind of teasing the audience, saying, you think you know everything, but just there might have been something you skipped over in the text. You might want to, the comma means something. The words mean something, that sort of thing. That's all I meant. And so knowing that, knowing that. I I have to tell you that it is a grand permission, and I am so grateful to be able to take people from where they think this film is about,
Yeah.
and take them somewhere where they have no idea they're going to go. It is unlike, as you know, unlike any other abduction film, because it will surprise you at the end. You, at the beginning, you will think you know everything, and at the end, you'll say, "What the hell happened there?" And that is
Was
where
I
I want.
just abducted?
Yeah, that is where I want you, because the next film will take you from there and say, "Look, all right, let us explore this together. Let us take a look at these modalities together," because you can't say, "Oh, 5, 7, 4 equals 12." No, no, you have to do the long format math, because unless some people are blessed, they have that automatic download and they get it.
Yeah.
But for the masses, and that's where I think you asked about a mission at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I think I'm the guy who wants to speak to everybody. You know, you could have a professor, John Mack, brilliant guy, but he
Yeah.
was able to speak to a common man.
Yeah.
You know, if you use a vernacular there, you're going to lose all the people. If we talk to the top experts in this community or MUFON or whatever, they're going to speak at such a level that the common person is just not going to get it.
Mhm.
And what I think, if I have a talent, it is taking that information, distilling it down, and speaking to people on a personal level, a visceral level, and saying, "Come with me."
Yeah. Yeah, I think
You
you do a wonderful job, and it is an important job that a lot of people will sort of go face to face with people and lecture them, whereas yours is like entertaining, where they're watching, but they don't realize they're actually learning something from it. It's where if you remember Chase Brandon, who was CIA guy for Hollywood. So he would go and somebody's doing a movie on CIA, say, "Have you ever been to CIA? Do you know what CIA is like? I'll take you to CIA." And he sort of guides the filmmaker to tell the story they want told. And so you're doing that where the people can watch it and say, I don't really do this stuff. And they watch it and they get motivated rather than somebody's in their face. So you got an important thing as being the storyteller to keep the attention of people. And it really does. This documentary keeps people's attention and sort of takes them step by step as you build it up. And in the end, you have this crescendo, and it's not what you thought. Because I told you the first time we did the interview, when I first saw it, I almost shut it off after 5 minutes. I went, "Oh no, not again! We're not going to do this."
Mhm.
But it was impressive. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next two parts. Maybe talk a little bit about where it's going to be released and how people can get a hold of it.
Sure. The film will be released everywhere. It'll start off in Amazon and Apple TV and pay-per-view throughout, and then it'll all come out May 3rd. And then right now we're in negotiations with Netflix for it to come out in June there. And then after that, of course, it'll be available via Amazon, .com, DVD, Redbox, that whole thing, and that'll be in November. But the big distribution will begin May 3rd. People will be able to download it. They'll be able to see it on their big screen TV.
Yeah.
And we're very, very excited about that.
Oh, I can't recommend it enough. It was stunningly well done, and well told story, and important message. And some of that, when you were in that regression part and you were doing some of that stuff, I was listening very carefully too. I going like, because when there's truth, it's like there's the smaller self thinks and the higher self knows. And when I heard that, I said, "That's higher self talking." And I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" That's why I asked you a question. Was there anything more that you left out of the film?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Part two. Grant, unfortunately, I'm losing my battery here, my dear friend, and I must
Okay,
go. But I thank
beautiful.
you so much, and I just want to say this: I couldn't have done this film.
Now you're frozen up.
oh, I think we lost him.
Okay, so Debs, maybe you can finish it off for us and give us
Oh,
some insight as to where we go from here. And I appreciate you're doing what you do because you're an important part of the film as well, and
oh,
sort of in
thank
the
you.
climax of it. And thanks to all the other people that participated as well. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Yeah, those brave people, everyone who shared their experience, I think they have the biggest hearts and the most courage because, they are everyday people and they have
Nope.
everyday jobs and families and so forth, and um, they really put a lot on the line to be public, with this, and to be honest, to give people a direct experience. So, um, I'm just looks like John might be with us again, but
Okay, yeah,
uh, I'm just honored to be a little part of it.
yeah,
More than anything, Grant, I was honored to be able to go on the journey with him
yeah,
because from the moment I met him, there was a compulsion in me to have him have that experience for some reason. It was just like he's being pulled along to make this movie and get this message out. I was being pulled along to make sure he did it. It was just the most bizarre thing ever.
yeah.
And
It
but
was,
it is beautiful, and thank you very much for your kind words and for your attention to it because it's important to me that you saw it. I I admire your work so much and your authenticity and uh the adventure you've been on with yourself personally recently, and I think it all is tying us together, isn't it? It's almost like we're all being pulled into the whirlpool at the same time for a very big reason.
yeah.
So
Wow, beautiful. Thanks. And what I'll do is
yeah,
I'll send you the film or the session tonight, and I'll put the trailer on the front so we can
cool.
and you can get John to put it in wherever he wants, but we can put the trailer right at the front so people can see that as it starts. And so we will
Thank
get the
you.
trailer in there.
I apologize for all my technical stuff. I have been pretty much working on Zoom nonstop for the last 5 days and
Yeah, well,
never a
that's the
problem.
thing. Maybe as John said, there was some people who didn't really want that message. They want the other message out, but
True, and that's okay.
yeah.
We are all
But we got the
trying to
big
get it
boys
out.
on our side.
Yes, we do. I can tell you we do. And they are absolutely going to make sure that this happens.
Yeah.
That
And
it's what I keep being told.
it's the old joke. I've seen the last chapter and we win.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Yeah. Well, that's what the star teachers, those beings that I channel say. They're like, we wouldn't be talking to you now had you not succeeded. And so you do, you succeed in overcoming all of the things that humanity is currently, kind of struggling with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thanks, Debs, and thank John for
Thanks.
me. And hopefully we can do it again for part 2 or maybe a follow-up down the road. And when things take
Oh,
off, I really, really thank you for letting me be a part of this whole thing.
oh, thank you so much, Grant. And I'm very sincere about that offer of,
Okay, I'll give you a little
taking you
more
on the
detail.
journey.
It's a little more complex than I put in the email, but it's critically important. It's something that is sort of stumped me that something doesn't make sense, and so I'll discuss it with you, and we'll see where it goes. But I
Oh,
appreciate we've worked together on stuff for many years, and
yes.
let's keep going. And as I said, I always tell people this is the Super Bowl of all stories, and we are lucky enough to have played on the field. And so thank you
Absolutely.
for being in the game with me.
Thank you so much, my friend, and thanks for this. I hope you have a
Namaste.
great night. Bye-bye.
You as well.
Namaste. Thanks.
Bye bye.